Okay. Yeah, it'd be good to hear about that, Molly.
Start again. Yeah, so we're rewilding 50 acres of historic parkland on the Sharpham Estate. And so we've been doing that since 2020. And we've been doing that in partnership with the Sharpham Trust, who are our landlords. And as part of the project's funded through National Lottery Heritage funding. And that part of the project is all about engaging people in the community with the rewilding project, because the land is very public facing. And yeah, people access the land and walk through the site. So that was a big consideration in the rewilding project to get local people involved. So for the first couple of years of the project, we actually just let go of the land and let it do its thing. So let nature kind of take its course to see what was hiding in the seed bank, and let some of those succession processes of growth catch up, because the land had been quite intensively farmed with dairy cows, and yeah, a lot of slurry and nutrients had been pumped into the soil over the years. That it was basically, we started out with just fields, essentially, permanent pasture type fields. And yeah, so first 2 years, well, year and a half or so, we didn't do anything. And then we started to introduce some grazing pressure to try and get that balance between growth and succession. So, yeah, growth, grazing, you know what I mean, grazing pressure. So to do that, we have introduced two fluffy pigs. There's two Mangalitsa pigs, so they're like a Hungarian breed that are quite similar to wild boar. So they help disturb the soil to increase patches of bare ground, which is good for colonization of wildflowers, opening up the ground for things like creating habitats for things like beetles, lots of invertebrates. So they kind of use that. They do that rootling disturbance to open up bare ground. And then we've got 4 belted Galloway across the 50 acres cattle. And they work in a different way by browsing and grazing the site really. So ripping up some of the long grasses. To kind of, because with rewilding, really for us, it's about kind of restore those natural processes, like I said earlier. So creating lots of structural diversity in the land. So like a mosaic of habitats. So some like taller vegetation, some shorter vegetation, just creating as many different habitat opportunities for as many different species as possible. And then recently, like in the last month or so, we've introduced 2 conic ponies, so some ponies which are quite wild, and they're going to be browsing and grazing in a different way than both the cattle and the pigs. They're like, horses are more selective in their grazing, so they'll like preferentially graze and browse certain areas. So yeah, it's just all about, for us, really about creating that structural diversity, and with that we're seeing the return of quite a lot of like birds, insects. We do surveys on the land because we offer training at Ambios. That's what we primarily are, we're a training organisation. And we have trainees that come and stay with us for 12 weeks and learn a lot of like wildlife ID skills and survey skills and lots of stuff. Since we've been rewilding, they've done a lot of their work throughout the traineeship on the rewilding land, like helping us take year-on-year surveys, which I think is another point actually for rewilding. Getting, if you can, I think it's nice to try and get some of that like baseline data of what you've got. So then when you've been rewilding a while, you can look back and repeat some surveys, or even if it's just like low key stuff, just to see the improvements that that you're having.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that kind of came up in the Rewilding Talk, is you know what the plan was in terms of surveying. I think lots of people forget that surveying it before anything's been done
Before you do anything, so you know
really useful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been really useful for us because we've been able to map that year on year. What I say increase, it does look like increases, but I wouldn't want to draw any conclusions because, like you said, it's such a short time period, 4 years, if you're talking about rewilding, but yeah, and there's so many different variables in like, oh, that was a really dry spring last year, or
But in terms of what, I mean, without, sort of delving into the detail, in terms of the feel of the land over those 4 years, have you seen the kind of changes?
oh yeah, it's absolutely transformed. I try if I just put in a little video from a recent kind of drone thing that
Can
we
you
had.
share your screen, Molly?
Yeah, I'll just get that up. 2 seconds. Find it. Got to find it now. There we go. Gonna have like cringy music over the top.
That's okay.
There we go. It's really tiny. Is it really tiny?
It's possible.
I don't know how to make it bigger. So that's what it initially looked like. That's 2021, 2022, 2023. So basically messy.
Yeah, you can just see it, can't you?
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, like,
Amazing.
a lot of it's difficult to get that idea behind that weeds are good, necessarily, like weeds are a good thing, like stinging nettles. We've got ragwort. We've not got loads of ragwort, but the docks, the nettles, the thistles, there's a lot of them. But we're kind of okay with that, and that's why we're now upping the grazing pressure to kind of find that balance.
Yeah.
Between that succession of those weeds and finding that balance really. But yeah, this is our site, lots going on.
Because I think a lot of people kind of look out on kind of rural, especially rural mid-Devon landscape, and it looks very green and
yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it?
Lots of it is not very diverse.
We're conditioned to think like bright green, neat hedges is like wild, and it's once you understand, get that understanding that that's not necessarily full of biodiversity.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's shocking. It's pretty derelict, to be honest. But yeah, it's just I guess we're conditioned growing up that like shifting baseline syndrome, they call it, don't you? Where you kind of like what you grew up with, you think is like how it should be, and then generation on generation, kind of the perception of things gets a bit warped.
It's really powerful and it's really difficult. Lauren and I were doing a bit of a project on kind of oral histories, and it's really hard to document or remember what things were like. Unless it's well recorded, or people were particularly focused on thinking about what things were like 10, 20, 30 years ago. You can remember sort of very specific things. So for example, I was brought up in South Devon, and I definitely remember going on journeys and there being a lot of insects on the screen. And I definitely remember, whiling away the time as a child, kind of looking at the buddleia bush with loads of species of butterflies, not just, one or two. It was really, buzzing, which I haven't seen things like that for ages. But any more detail, it's hard unless you're, in it all day, every day, and surveying and really taking stock of what's there, I think.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And like I say, sort of around here, and I've got quite a rural view, usually in front of me. It's obviously pitch black right now, but there's diversity in that there's a bit of woodland, and this, you can see farmers have managed it in a slightly different way. But even though it looks like there isn't any kind of industrial farming, there is, because even if it's not overstocked, there's still a lot of ryegrass. There's a lot of production for the anaerobic digester. There's a lot of cows that are indoors whilst you know, the grazing's not happening.
Yeah,
On
it's
mature
really
pastures, it's
hard, isn't it? The whole food security thing is hard, in terms of, by rewilding, it can sound like you want to take all the productive land out of, change all the farmed land into rewilding land, but that's not really what we want to do. It's that marginal land that doesn't produce
yeah,
the quality food, that has just the inputs are just ridiculous, and the farmers aren't really gaining any profit. I think they're farming sometimes because their fathers farmed and their grandfathers farmed, their great grandfathers farmed that bit of land, but it's not necessarily,
it's not really viable.
no, it's not really viable. And that kind of like ecological, they call it like ecological tidiness disorder, where we like things to be neat, like hedges to be trimmed, and but yeah, it's kind of getting past that. But I do think that 100% like farming is changing. There's a lot of change at the moment with the subsidy schemes and stuff available to farmers with the introduction of the new environmental land management schemes. And I think they hold promise for some of this kind of like more nature recovery movement, which I think is really important. I think a lot of farmers are willing to try and do care about the land. It's not that farmers don't care.
Yeah.
It's just
care can look very different, can't it?
Yeah, it's just difficult. But yeah, hopefully with some of these subsidies as well, like it's another kind of incentive. Some of this like rewilding or nature recovery, there is kind of money to be made from making some of these changes, which is another kind of incentive for some.
Yeah, and biodiversity net gain, I think.
Yeah,
biodiversity
net gain as well.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. So in terms of you know, if you were to best engage all those kind of 60 people who turned up in Tiverton on the talk, what would you recommend them to do to kind of connect with rewilding, or to, you know, take the next step on their land? I guess the first thing is to join the Devon REwilding Network.
Plug the network, so I have to do that. Yeah, I think just start conversations with people around you, see how they're feeling. I think if you, I guess it's very dependent on people's circumstances with their land, but if you can, I'd say to just try and let nature lead a bit. So, like you were saying earlier about wanting to do things and make a difference, like sometimes nature just needs to breathe, and it's amazing what can come back. And you kind of also need to allow land that time to show you what is there and what is capable and what type of land you're working with, because I think that's really important to inform how you manage it. Yeah, going forward, I mean, obviously things like tree planting and stuff are really, really important, and you just really need to try and think about creating that structural diversity in your land if possible. So yeah, creating lots of different habitats. That's how you're going to bring in lots of different species. But yeah, I think engaging with the Rewilding Network, engaging with local community groups that are doing work for nature recovery. There's a lot of stuff out there. It's just people finding it and getting the right place.
And then for anybody who wanted to kind of learn, who didn't know about rewilding but thought it sounded like an interesting term, and how can they do it on a small scale maybe, or how can they get involved, understand more?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good books out there. I don't know if you guys know like many rewilding books that exist, but
We've
so
got I don't know if I've got them here anymore, but
big,
kind of wilding book, and there's
Wilding by Isabella Tree on the the Nep Estate.
There's a follow-up which was
oh, that's the new, so that's like quite a heavy new like handbook for rewilding, isn't it? So that's by, I guess Direct probably talked about Nep, did she, in her?
She did a little bit, yeah. And this is actually a really good, I mean, I haven't been through it fully. I bought it.
I haven't actually read it yet, read into it yet, the big new one.
But it's great because it goes into the technical detail of how it can be done and what what the important things are. So I guess if people are interested in, and it doesn't just talk about agricultural land, it's
No.
there's a chapter on rewilding water, for example,
Yeah.
kind of recovering our natural water systems. And yeah, it's more like a kind of textbook, I suppose.
Yeah, that one's more like a manual textbook. There's like, if you want more of like the story behind it, there's a book called Wilding, with the nice, I think it's got Nightingale on the front of it, pretty front cover. That's by Isabella Tree, who is the lady who owns NEP with her husband, Charlie Burrell. And that book there's come after is more of like a handbook on how to rewild your land.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. There's other books off the top of my head. What should I think about? There's if you want to learn more about like species and what was and stuff, there's a book called, I think it's just actually called Rewilding.
There's one called I feel like I've got a library, this is how cluttered my desk is. I don't know if you can see that.
Rewild Yourself.
Yeah, it's called Rewild Yourself.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I haven't read one.
The weird blurring. This is quite a good one because it's just broken down into kind of 23 ways to make nature a bit more visible.
Yeah.
You can kind of break it down into just small things to do where you are rather than a kind of massive project. So it depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, what's like good. So I guess with rewilding, it's good to understand kind of what was. I guess that's what you've been doing a bit through this event series, trying to understand like what was there and what even before, right back along, what our landscapes would have looked like.
Yeah, although it's surprisingly difficult to find out.
Yeah,
even if you go back and look at the first like OS maps in this area, there are actually fewer trees than there are now.
Yeah, I
like
think
our village, for example, was much more populated than it is now. So like it's quite, I always feel a little bit challenged by the terminology kind of restoration, because what are you restoring it to and when is that?
Yeah, so what those kind of like time frames, because if you want to look back like even further, I mean, I'm not very good at time periods or whatever, but yeah, there's like kind of this perception that the whole of the UK used to be just like thick woodland.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of data suggests and evidence to suggest that's not the case. It would have been more of this like mosaic of different habitats.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that's like something that's definitely interesting to look into, because it's just kind of this thing that's, you just imagine that it was all just dense forest, but that's dense forest isn't particularly biodiverse. You kind of need that structural diversity and different types of habitat in order to have more species present, and lots of different niches they call it, so things that animals fill, niches they fill. So yeah, kind of understanding some of the like history behind it, I think can really help if you're really interested in rewilding. There's a couple books. There's one that's called like Rewilding, I think it's called, by Kane Blythe and Paul Jepson, which is a great book, but it's quite sciencey. So it depends if you want to go into that much depth. But yeah, and then Rewilding Britain's website, there's absolutely stacks on there about like steps you can take to rewild, loads of resources on there. So I thoroughly recommend referring back to Rewilding Britain. Even though they target like large scale projects, really, they do have some stuff for smaller scale rewilding.
Yeah. I know that the Devon Wildlife Trust has the sort of nature garden or wildlife garden plaque at the moment, which is kind of a scheme so that people can tick off things that they've done for wildlife just in their gardens, because it's kind of underestimated maybe habitat in its own right.
Yeah.
All the gardens that we have are kind of small refuges.
Yeah, all together they create quite a big area.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've got a few resources. We have a tab on the Devon REwilding Network called Rewilding Resources that we try and put stuff we come across that's useful into there. So some of the stuff that I've been talking to. Yeah, it kind of, I guess it depends how in depth you want to go, but yeah, there's that handbook is meant to be really good. That Isabella Tree one. It's just a big old textbook, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's quite
yeah,
daunting.
it's good for like holding doors open, and it's
Yeah,
big and heavy, but it's quite nice. You feel like you're not being shortchanged. It's
yeah,
full of good
definitely.
information that you can kind of dip in and out of as well. So that's good.
What are some other books? My colleague Simon always really recommends. I've not actually read it myself, but Braiding Sweetgrass. I'm not really
Okay.
sure too much about
Mm,
it, but it's meant to be a really great book.
okay.
Um,
Maybe we need a kind of rewilding book club, a nature book.
yeah,
That would be good.
that's also on the network recently we've been trying to think of how we can create a new like space on the network called Reading List, and we're trying to figure out how to.
Yeah, that's great. I almost exclusively read like nature type books. I'm
Yeah,
not very good at reading novels, but I'm quite good at reading other types of things. So it'd be quite good to chat about people who don't mind hearing about.
the great book called Rebirding as well by
Oh
Ben
yeah,
Donald. That's a great book, for eye-opening book.
yeah. It's
uh,
good to see different perspectives on these things. Thank you so much, Molly. Janet, did you have anything that you wanted to particularly kind of bring or put me and Lauren to work?
Well,
I know I
the
spoke to you a
only,
bit at the event.
the only thing I was going to raise was you highlighted in, I suppose it must have been at the end of our meeting we had, where
Mhm.
we all put little sticky notes of varying aspects that we felt needed addressing, which
Yes.
was really interesting what you sent out. I found that fascinating, all the different um, topics that people highlighted that they felt needed further development or engagement. Just wonder whether there would be any follow up to that, as to whether you would be looking into how that could be, I
Well,
don't know, taken forward. There was, some really, really interesting things on there. I felt very, very
very personal.
pertinent, quite a lot of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Um, I guess we'd hope that this meeting might be a chance to kind of gain
Yeah.
a bit of energy. But Laura and I will kind of sit down and have a look through that list, and see what we might be able to take forward, and we might be able to kind of present some of those things to the district council and see whether there's
Yeah.
funding behind it. But yeah, essentially
Yeah. There were so many. Well, I was looking
there
at
were
them
some
now. There
great
was,
ideas and
yeah,
real kind of visionary answers, really, some of them.
absolutely. Some people, yeah, absolutely. And I find it really interesting that people have really put some real thought into it.
Yeah, but also you know, things which were very doable. So it's just
Mm,
a matter of kind of finding funding and people who can commit their time and energy to put that in. So yeah, I don't quite know what our next steps on that will
no, no,
be.
that's fine.
But yeah, I think we should definitely move that forward. That's a good nudge. Thank you, Janet.
Well, it just looked really, it was, people clearly were passionate, and it's a shame, like you say, there aren't more people here, but maybe there's a means of reconnecting with them on the premise of going through this list and see whether you get involved in it that way. I don't know, but
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. We'll
but
have a think about how to
we are
utilize.
a nation of always being too busy, unfortunately.
I know, yeah,
Yeah,
it is the case. There's always,
no,
different priorities, and
yeah,
it's often a bit
it,
tricky. Oh, sorry,
it
Monica.
is. I
Bit
just wanted to say
tricky.
how Lauren, how inspiring I found how you set your project
Oh,
up
thank
in your own
you.
village of Bickley. That was, really commendable. I really take my hat off to you, and you're still doing it clearly.
Yeah, we're still busy. Well, it's spring now, so it's kind of like we're
Yeah.
gonna go again soon and start some more things. But yeah, I found it quite addictive to get involved with these things, and the more
Okay. Yeah.
kind of made progress, the more it kind of like spurs us on to just come up with more ideas, really.
Mm,
So yeah, that's why it'd be so nice if there were more of these little groups that could form across the different parishes, because
mm,
yeah, I just think there's so many, I found so many benefits for it, for me getting to know people where I live, and just bringing people together that all feel the same about these issues, but kind of like together being able to take a bit of action together. So yeah, it's been really good.
No, that's really good. Well, I'm sure Molly will testify this. We have a very active, which I'm very poorly lax in doing anything about, but we do have an extremely active green team with our own village.
Yeah,
they are very passionate.
Oh, they're
people.
fantastic. They're really fantastic.
I'm like shamefully not involved in them at all.
I know. Well, I'm
really
the
want
same.
to be.
Shamefully,
It's just like, yeah, just time of life. I just need to really get involved more.
Well, just, you know, the great thing about these things is that people are really keen if you turn up, you know, so even if you commit to just one thing that you're interested in,
absolutely,
you will be warmly welcomed. Like this. And you
yeah.
know, Jenny on the green team, she's just, her enthusiasm is just intoxicating. And I think that's the thing, is that you don't have to worry about being committed to every single event. Just you know, go to what you can, and if you can just turn up to the Swift watching event, which sounds absolutely divine, and I hope they rerun it again this.
Yeah, that was good. I think I've been once or twice, I can't remember now, but
yeah, so
really good.
People like to be supported in all sorts of different ways. That's
good, actually, saying about you shouldn't feel, it's very easy to feel guilty if you don't get involved in a full capacity, but I think you're right that any amount that you do is going to be better than none, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that's the way to see sort of volunteers. And when I worked for the National Trust, I was part of my role was kind of volunteer manager, and like the trust was really good at just celebrating what volunteers did, and people worked in all sorts of different ways, and were, you know, contributed what they could in all sorts of different ways. And yeah, I've always kind of remembered that you just kind of, as a volunteer or a participant, you know, you're definitely appreciated in whatever sort of scope or time or, you know, energy that you can give to a project, and kind of celebrating people arriving to things or making the most of the people who are there. Like even with these things, sometimes the numbers are a bit down, but we always have really valuable conversations, no matter how many or how few people are here. So you kind of take from it, you know, whatever comes from it. But yeah, I will leave you to your evening. It's been really lovely to speak to you both, and yeah, we'll be planning a few different events coming up shortly, hopefully to mobilize some of those ideas, like you say, Janet. But yeah, if you have any kind of thoughts, please do just drop us an email or something on what might need doing somewhere, or if you have a good idea on how to engage rural communities, then yeah, just drop us a note. But for now, thank you so much for your input.
Thank you.
And yeah, Molly, we will certainly be signposting the Rewilding Network, because I think that's a really good resource, and kind of look forward to kind of seeing how it grows.
Yeah, nice. Have you finished your series Wild Revival now? Is there any more?
Not entirely. We are just kind of confirming plans for the next couple of, I think we've got 2 more events.
A few more. Yeah, sorry I haven't been to any of the other ones. It's just...
No, not at all. It wasn't intended to be, you know, people have dipped in and out of different things. So it was...
Sounds like great. It was a great, like, it was a great idea. I really like the concept of taking people through like a bit of a journey of what was be. Really nice idea.
Oh, thank you. No, it's been fun to do, and we've learned loads from it, haven't we, Lauren?
I think Molly, I spoke to you originally, and you put me into thank you so much for that. That was great.
No worries. Yeah, I thought she'd be quite keen to.
Yeah, Dorette was a great speaker, and there were some brilliant questions, and yeah, her presentation was excellent, gave us a real insight into what was happening on the farm. So there's a tree planting event there this weekend on Saturday from the Tiverton Tree team, which is fully booked on the back of the last of our talks. That was
great. I'm glad. Glad you enjoyed her talking. She's really funny, isn't she?
Yeah,
Was
Yeah.
her daughter there with her? Or was it
Yeah,
just
she
her?
was. They were sort of a bit
Yeah.
of a double act.
Yeah, they're great. They're really good fun.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Molly, and good to meet you.
That's all right. Yeah, lovely to meet you. Yeah, be in touch at any point if you need me. Reach me through the Devon REwilding Network email address. It's probably the easiest thing.
Yeah, excellent. One thing which I might ask you about is how much in terms of kind of education is there being done on kind of Sharpham Estate?
On Sharpham Estate,
Yeah,
education.
yeah.
So we Ambios, who
Yeah.
I work for, we're tenants of the Sharpham Estate, and we've been based there on the Sharpham Estate for, I think, it's been there for like 15 years now or so. And we run like residential traineeships. So that's for
Okay.
people. Basically, they're open to anyone. People do have to pay to come on the traineeships. It's like not like a free thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we run those. Sharpham itself is more mindfulness retreats and
Okay.
things.
Yeah, it might be interesting to connect with you from a kind of Ambios
Ambios,
perspective.
yeah.
So I volunteer a bit for the network of environmental educators in Devon,
Right.
and we have kind of monthly webinars, which is all for kind of environmental education practitioners of any kind of scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder if you might be keen to kind of be linked up to that somehow, and
Oh
maybe
yeah,
even
definitely.
at a webinar.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. We love to, I'm sure we'd love to be involved in some way. My
I'll put
colleagues.
you on the mailing list.
Yeah, go for it. Have you got, what email address have you got for me?
I
Just
don't know. Do you mind writing it in the chat?
Yeah, you can take my Ambios one as well. That's probably the easiest way to reach me quickly.
So what's your position?
So we're a really small charity. We're a non-for-profit. My position is farm and course coordinator, but to be honest, it's a bit of a weird title. I'm basically just a bit of everything. So I'm like marketing, communications, administration, and I facilitate the Devon REwilding Network. And then my colleague Simon is one of the Simon Roper. Do you know of him? A lot of people know who he is.
Yeah, I have.
You probably everybody
It rings
knows
a bell. I
Simon.
don't really.
He's been around like the wildlife trusts and things, but
Yeah.
he's very well networked, that man. So I wouldn't be surprised if you've not.
Yeah, maybe I know him through.
Normally, if I bring up someone's name to him, he's like, "Oh yeah, I know them," or "I know
Maybe
them from his first." Like, okay,
Local Nature Partnership, something like that, probably.
maybe, probably, yeah. He will have been involved. Oh, is that email in as well?
Oh, you farm. Okay.
Yeah, I'm farm, or I'm Molly Turner, but
I farm.
yeah. So my capacity is kind of just like everywhere with Ambios.
Reach your. Okay, I'll add you to the. I mean, the emails are very sporadic, so you won't be inundated.
Yeah, add us to the mailing list and we'll see how we can link up. Network of Environmental Educators in Devon. That's what.
Yeah, so there's I'll send you a little link. If I can, here we go. We're sort of seated under the Devon Local Nature Partnership. So it's partly administrated by Devon County Council.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see some details there. But it's a really long-standing network.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've just been supporting it in the last year or two.
Nice.
And it's got, a sort of strong steering group, and a lot of the kind of big players in environmental education are pretending. We're having an event shortly. I'm just trying to sort out the venue for sometime in spring, probably May, for a kind of practitioners skill share.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know of any venues. We're looking for a kind of South Devon venue that would be kind of relatively inexpensive, that would house between sort of 30 to 50 people for a sort of skill share event.
Yeah.
Ideally something which would have some sort of outdoor element which people could go and have a look round. And
That sounds. I wonder if Ambios could help you.
well, yeah, if there is something on Sharpham Estate, that would be
Yeah, I mean, so we have. Well, obviously we have a residential training base, so we have
yeah.
don't really, we have only like a barn really where we deliver most kind of things, and we have people come in and do, but we do have like groups come in and use the barn and stuff, and because we have quite good, we have like a, so we call it the day room, like the communal space where we can provide like tea, coffee, stuff. So
Oh, that's ideal.
yeah, I want, and obviously you have the rewilding site and stuff. Simon's always really keen to network and stuff, so I wonder if we could.
Yeah, do you think you could just drop me a note? And
do you know when it is in May, when it's scheduled for? Because
well, we haven't scheduled it yet, so we're just trying to find a venue.
So we have a big like so on the 18th of May this year we have a literary festival that we've run for the last couple of years, called Restoring Nature, and we have authors. I don't know who's speaking this year yet. We had George Monbiot last year, so that was good fun.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, the barn will be set up. That's on the 18th of May. So like,
I mean, it doesn't have to be in May. It's just there's an outdoor learning conference in March, and then there's another Skillshare thing in South Brent, kind of beginning of April. So then to give us time to organise everything.
We'll pop us an email, and we'll see if there's any option for that.
Oh, fantastic! Thanks so much, Molly.
Right.
Good. Well, I shall actually let you get back to your evening.
That's fine. Thank you. It's nice to speak to you guys.
Yeah, really good to see you. Really good to see you. Lauren, if you hang on a second, I'll just quickly catch up with you after.
All right, bye, Molly.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye, Molly.
Bye,
Janet.
Is that recording still?
And now I'll just try and stop the